Welcome to a new school year at Vestal High School. Whether you are joining us in person or starting out fully remote, we are excited to be back at school. At the end of this presentation, you will need to verify your understanding of new procedures at school related to COVID-19, as well as the procedures and expectations included in the handbook and code of conduct. This video is a place where you can learn a little bit about how to get involved, how to stay out of trouble, and what expectations are in place. We would also like to take a quick second to remind you about some of our special procedures this year due to COVID-19, including our health form, our entry lines in the atrium, our temperature checks, the importance of wearing your face mask at all times, a reminder to practice social distancing, and following directional arrows to help eliminate overcrowding in the hallways. Inside your planner, you will find the names and contact information for the principal, assistant principals, and dean of students at Vestal High School. If you have not already done so, take a moment to write your name in the front of your student planner so that it can be returned to you if you lose it. You will also find some district information, and you can practice the Vestal High School alma mater on the next pages. After the table of contents on page 2, you will find the Vestal High School bell schedule. There is currently no change to the daily bell schedule, and keep this page handy, especially on your days of virtual learning, so that you can log into your classes at the correct times. Don't forget that we will not be using lockers this year, so plan ahead and pack a backpack to help you stay organized here at school. We also want to remind you of the importance of social distancing in the hallways to avoid overcrowding. This school year, all students have been assigned to a specific cohort day for in-person attendance and remote learning. Whether you are with us in person or working remotely at home, daily attendance and completion of assignments is required of all students. We are not able to make changes to assigned cohorts at this time, but the days of in-person attendance may adjust as we move through the different reopening phases. We hope to be able to return to 5 days of in-person instruction for all students soon. The atrium is still the single point of entry to the high school. You will notice that several entry lines have been created. Each of them will direct you to a different waiting area for the morning: the cafeteria, commons, 181, or the auditorium. If you have your health form completed and signed, you can enter through one of these lines, have your temperature checked by a staff member, and turn in your form before heading into school to wait for first period. If you know that you need to complete a health form, or you're planning to grab breakfast, no problem. Enter the far right line near the attendance windows, where a staff member will review your form with you. Our staff will be collecting completed health forms, and all students, staff, and visitors will have their temperatures checked before starting their day at the high school. Before first period, students will be waiting in one of several designated areas: the cafeteria, commons, 181, or the auditorium. Students must not gather in hallways, restrooms, or other unassigned areas. Free breakfast is available to grab in the commons line, and you may eat in room 181. You may remove your mask while eating, but please remain seated and socially distant. Dismissal from these areas will begin at 7:55. First period begins at 8 a.m. each day. If you arrive after this time, you will be considered tardy. Please keep in mind the required health forms and temperature checks will be in place for students arriving late and may take additional time to complete before you can enter the building and head to class. Attendance, whether virtually or in person, is critical to your success. Please remember to have a parent or guardian contact the attendance office anytime you will be absent or unable to participate in your required classes, whether in person or remote. Page 9 provides some information on our attendance policies and makeup work, including a list of excused absences accepted by New York State, and provides expectations for parents to call and provide a written note to the attendance office for all absences, including days of remote learning when you are unable to participate in your required classes. Page 10 begins the class attendance regulation and the progressive disciplinary procedures around truancy. We are committed to improving student achievement through regular attendance and subsequent participation in all assigned classes. Truancy may be subject to academic consequences, including loss of credit for assignments, and truancy includes unexcused absences, leaving school grounds without permission from school officials, getting a pass and not arriving at your location, or reporting to school and not attending class. Please be reminded of the following information regarding tardy procedures. A student must be on time to all assigned classes or he or she is considered tardy. This applies to all assigned classes, including study hall and commons on in-person days. Students who are late to school must report to the attendance office upon arrival to the building, and a student who is late to school, excused, unexcused, or late arrival, must check in with the attendance office. Consequences for class tardiness shall be determined by the classroom teacher. On page 11, you can review some information about makeup work. Following an absence, it is the student's responsibility to make arrangements with the teacher to make up all assignments and tests. Generally, the student would be given 1 day to make up assignments for each day the student was absent, unless, based on the circumstances and nature of the assignment or other factors, the classroom teacher establishes an alternative deadline. Clear communication is critical, and making up work as soon as possible will ensure that you do not fall behind and become frustrated with your learning. In the case of an absence due to truancy, students should be aware that they may be unable to make up missed work. Students who need to be excused from school during normal school hours must present a written request from parent or legal guardian. This request should be submitted to the attendance clerk on the day to be excused and must include the reason and the time. Students are reminded that said appointments will result in the student being marked as absent from class, and parents and students are encouraged to schedule appointments after school hours. Parents wishing to pick up students during the school day must show a valid form of picture ID and be on the student's contact list. Face masks must be worn at all times, including while in hallways and restrooms. Please pay attention to the directional arrows to help guide the flow of traffic, and leave space in the middle zone of the hallways to allow for social distancing. Students who do not comply with these guidelines and redirection from staff members will face consequences for insubordination under the Code of Conduct. In your classrooms, you will notice that many desks and seats have been arranged to indicate social distancing. Do not move any desks without permission. And be sure to sit in your assigned seat as directed by your teacher. This will allow us to clean each area appropriately. You must also wear your face mask during all classes. And speaking of face masks, here is another reminder. You must wear your face mask at all times, unless you are eating at an assigned time and area. Eating will not be allowed in classrooms this year. While your mask is off, you must remain in your seat and replace your mask before moving to discard trash or head to your next class. Failure to comply with directions to wear your face mask will be considered insubordination, and you will face disciplinary consequences under the Code of Conduct, including the possibility of being sent home to continue instruction remotely. Wearing your face mask is important to keeping everyone safe and healthy, and it is a sign of respect. Students who need medical attention will be sent to the health office with a pass from their classroom teacher. The student must sign in and out, and students are reminded that the health office is not a place to socialize or sleep. If a student needs to be sent home, the parent or guardian will be contacted. After the nurse speaks to the parent or guardian, the students will be excused through the attendance office. If a student drove to school, the parents must give verbal permission to the nurse for the student to drive home. In the event that a parent or guardian is not available, an emergency contact person should be provided to update the student database. No student can be administered a prescription or over-the-counter medication without a written order from their healthcare provider and written permission from the parent or guardian. An adult must bring the medication to the health office in the original container. All medication is to be kept in the health office and administered as needed. Students cannot keep any medication. This includes Tylenol, Advil, vitamins, cold preparations, or any other drug on their persons or in their lockers. No medication can be self-administered in school. All medication is to be kept in the health office and administered as needed. Here at Vestal High School, we want to encourage student leadership, so get involved. Students should exhibit positive character traits such as intellectual honesty, respect, tolerance, kindness, and leadership. Students who take a leadership role in our school and community through their volunteerism, positive attitude, respectful interactions, and active participation in class, clubs, athletics, and the arts promote a high-achieving environment. Be on the lookout for the student government's new virtual club hub, which will allow you to get involved whether you are with us in person or working remotely. Email is an important tool for students to be able to connect with their teachers now more than ever. Links are available on the district website, and students must check their school email daily. If you need help with a password or access, you may reach out to Mrs. Sweeney in the library or contact the BOCES Help Desk at 766-3800, where additional support will be provided. The Counseling and Guidance Office is a very busy place, and you must have an appointment with your counselor that does not interfere with your class times. You can find your counselor's name in the School Tool student portal and send them an email. Virtual appointments may be available during your remote days to help answer your questions. Please note that we are not able to make any scheduled team or teacher request changes at this time, but if you are missing a required class, please let your counselor know. Lunch change requests will not be honored. Information is also available in the Counseling and Guidance Office about college and careers, scholarships, and awards. The Counseling and Guidance Office invites you to join their Google Classroom Spaces. Review the list below for the appropriate join codes and take advantage of this online resource to support you with your planning needs. School safety is everyone's responsibility. Exterior doors must not be propped open, and entrance to the building is through the atrium only. Students may never be outside of the building without prior permission from an administrator. And remember that campus will be closed for lunch this year. Notify the SRO or an administrator with any concerns. And remember that if a student provides unauthorized access to anyone, including propping an exterior door, the student will be subject to disciplinary consequences. Our campus will be closed during lunch this year. However, lunch is available for free until December in the cafeteria and commons lines. You must eat in a designated area and follow all guidelines for sitting socially distant and replacing your face mask before leaving your seat for any reason. Students must not leave the campus during their lunch period. Student IDs will be used in the cafeteria line to pick up meals, and you can add money to your meal account through the My School Bucks website. This year, students will not be using lockers. Plan ahead and have your materials with you in your backpack. You also will need to pay close attention to the cycle days on your days of in-person instruction. If you have a physical education class on one of your in-person days, you will need to dress appropriately for that day and wear sneakers so that you can participate. Students will not be changing for physical education classes at this time. And we should talk for a minute about electronic devices and cell phones. Although we are relying more on technology to support your learning, it is important to use electronic devices and cell phones appropriately. The school is not responsible for the loss or theft of personal devices. Please refer to the signage around the building of power off, attention on, and respectful use allowed, and only use your device when allowed. Please note that no use of devices is permitted in restrooms or locker rooms. Your digital reputation is important. Protect it and connect with respect. Consequences for violations may include the removal of cell phone privileges for an extended period of time. This next section, beginning on page 18, provides information about driving and parking privileges. To be eligible to drive and park on campus, you must complete an online driving orientation. This information can be found on our school website. Students must have a valid school-issued hang tag, and only seniors may park in the front lot in the spaces outlined in green. No students may park in staff spaces in the front lot. Students in grades 11 and 12 may apply for late arrival and/or early dismissal if their schedule allows. This year, late arrival privilege may be extended to grade 11 students who have their own transportation in order to relieve the flow of traffic in the morning and reduce the amount of students in the commons. Students are required to submit a late arrival early release application through the webpage. Please note, early dismissal and late arrival will be based on parental permission and the approval of the Assistant Principal's Office and Counseling and Guidance Office. Certain aspects of these late arrival and early dismissal procedures only apply to the 2020-2021 school year and the unique circumstances of the moment. Please understand that this is a privilege, not a right, and privileges may be revoked for students with failing grades, excessive lates, or chronic absences from class or school. On page 21, we have the Code of Conduct and Plain Language Summary, which includes the student dress code, prohibited student conduct, and penalties. We encourage students to express their individuality. However, students must adhere to the following criteria with their dress. Be safe, appropriate, and do not disrupt or interfere with the educational process. Extremely brief garments such as tube tops, net tops, halter tops, plunging necklines front and back, bare midriffs, or see-through garments are not appropriate. Underwear must be covered completely and footwear must be worn at all times. Hats are not to be worn in the classroom or testing sites except for a medical or religious purpose, and hoods must be taken down when entering the building and must remain down. Items that are vulgar, obscene, libelous, or denigrate others on account of race, color, religion, creed, national origin, gender, sexual orientation, weight, or disability will not be allowed, and no items may promote or encourage other illegal or violent activities. Students who violate the dress code will be required to change or cover the offending item. Failure to do so may result in additional discipline. Page 21 begins the section of prohibited student conduct organized in 7 categories, which we will cover in more detail later in the video. As a general rule, discipline will be progressive. This means that a student's first violation will usually merit a lighter penalty than subsequent violations. School administrators will consider a variety of factors when determining consequences. We have a list of penalties ranging from a verbal warning to suspension. Page 23 indicates minimum periods of suspension defined by the district. Students who bring a weapon to school will be subject to suspension from school for at least 1 calendar year, unless otherwise determined by the superintendent. Students who commit violent acts other than bringing a weapon to school shall be subject to suspension for at least 5 days, unless otherwise determined by the superintendent. And students who are repeatedly substantially disruptive of the educational process, or who repeatedly substantially interfere with the teacher's authority over the classroom, will be suspended from school for at least 5 days. The Code of Conduct begins on the bottom of page 25. All students are expected to review these pages thoroughly, as you will be held accountable for all areas. The Code of Conduct begins on the bottom of page 25 with some definitions, including what we mean by disruptive student, bullying and cyberbullying, discrimination and harassment, violent student. On page 26, we also define a weapon and give a list of examples of items that could be considered a weapon. This list is not exhaustive. Moving on to page 28 to 30, you will see the prohibited student conduct in full form. The rules listed below are intended to focus on safety and respect for the rights and property of others. Students who will not accept responsibility for their own behavior or who violate these school rules will be required to accept the penalties for their conduct. Students may be subject to disciplinary action up to and including suspension when they engage in conduct that is A. Disorderly. Examples of conduct that is disorderly include but are not limited to running in hallways, making unreasonable noise, using language or gestures that are profane, lewd, vulgar, or abusive, obstructing vehicular or pedestrian traffic, engaging in any willful act which disrupts the normal operation of the school community, which may include bullying, cyberbullying, discrimination, or harassment. Trespassing. Students are not permitted in any school building other than the one they regularly attend without permission from the administrator in charge of the building. And computer, electronic communications, including any unauthorized use of computers, software, or internet accounts, accessing inappropriate websites, or any other violation of the district's acceptable use policy. This may include, but is not limited to, personal handheld devices such as games, handheld computers, and organizers. B. Engage in conduct that is insubordinate. Examples of conduct that is insubordinate include, but are not limited to, failing to comply with the directions of a teacher, school administrator, school employee, or other authorized school agent in charge of students or otherwise demonstrating disrespect. Lateness, missing or leaving school without permission, or skipping detention. C. Engage in conduct that is disruptive. Examples of disruptive conduct include, but are not limited to, failing to comply with the directions of a teacher, school administrator, school employee, or other authorized school agent in charge of students. D. Violent. Engage in conduct that is violent. Examples of violent conduct include, but are not limited to, committing an act of violence as defined in Section 2 upon a teacher, administrator, school employee, or other authorized agent, or attempting to do so. Committing an act of violence as defined in Section 2 upon another student, or any person lawfully on school property or attempting to do so. Possessing a weapon as defined in Section 2. Authorized law enforcement officials are the only persons permitted to have a weapon in their possession while on school property or at a school function. Displaying what appears to be a weapon, as noted in the definition of weapon in Section 2. Threatening to use any weapon, as noted in the definition of weapon in Section 2. Damaging or destroying the personal property of a student, teacher, administrator, other district employee, or other authorized school agent on school property, including graffiti or arson, or damaging or destroying school district property. E. Engage in any conduct that endangers the education, safety, morals, health, or welfare of others. This may include bullying, cyberbullying, discrimination, and/or harassment as defined in this code. Examples of such conduct include, but are not limited to, lying, stealing, defamation, discrimination, harassment, intimidation, hazing, bullying and cyberbullying, selling, using, or possessing obscene material, using vulgar or abusive language, cursing, swearing, or words which may incite another person. On page 15, you should review guidelines about bullying and cyberbullying. Bullying means unwanted aggressive behavior which harms or induces fear with the threat of further aggression. This behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Students may not intimidate, evoke fear, or otherwise harass staff or other students. Such behavior will not be tolerated and is a violation of the Code of Conduct, Section E. Bullying may include internet threats, online gaming, cyberbullying, text message threats, instant messaging, emailing, name-calling, unwanted physical contact, verbal or written insults, or otherwise demeaning behavior. Students should report all instances of bullying and cyberbullying to a staff member or the SRO. Off-campus incidents of bullying and cyberbullying that disrupts the school community can be addressed through the Code of Conduct. The Vestal High School principal is the building DASA coordinator, and the administrative team is here to support you if you believe you have been the target of bullying or cyberbullying. We cannot help solve problems we do not know about and take your concerns very seriously. Please also review the definition of harassment on page 15. The use or possession of a cigarette, cigar, pipe, chewing tobacco, smokeless tobacco, electronic cigarette, or similar device. The use, possession, sale, or gift of any drug or controlled substance, including marijuana, or any instruments for the use of such drug, controlled substance, or marijuana, such as a pipe, syringe, or other paraphernalia, or being under the influence of any drug or controlled substance, including marijuana, while on school premises, including buildings or grounds, or while in attendance at a school function or school-sponsored function. Accepted is any drug taken in accordance with a current prescription signed by a physician, which is to be taken by that particular student at the time in question. The use, possession, sale, or gift, or being under the influence of an alcoholic beverage while on school premises, including buildings or grounds, or while in attendance at a school function or school-sponsored function. Inappropriately using or sharing prescription or over-the-counter drugs. Possession, use, sharing, or being under the influence of synthetic cannabinoids, synthetic marijuana. Gambling, indecent exposure, initiating a false report, warning of fire or other catastrophe, misuse of 911, or discharging a fire extinguisher, extortion, or any willful act which disrupts the normal operation of the school community. If a student is suspected of consuming drugs or alcohol, the school will conduct tests, including but not limited to breathalyzer tests. Students who are uncooperative and/or refuse these tests will be considered insubordinate, which is a suspendable offense. Students who are believed to have consumed alcohol or other prohibited substances will be removed from the event and may be denied admittance to any future school events. Student searches may be conducted if there are reasonable grounds for suspecting that the search will turn up evidence that the student has violated either the law or the rules of the school. Searches are guided by the principle of reasonable suspicion, and all searches of students shall be conducted by an administrator and a witness. F. Engage in misconduct on a school bus. It is crucial for students to behave appropriately while riding on district buses. To ensure their safety and that of other passengers and to avoid distracting the bus driver, students are required to conduct themselves on the bus in a manner consistent with established standards for classroom behavior. Excessive noise, pushing, shoving, and fighting will not be tolerated. It's important to note that special procedures may be in place during our school reopening, and students must adhere to all directives from bus drivers and school staff. Students must ride their assigned routes and sit in their assigned seats, and face masks must be worn while on the bus. Once you arrive at school, be patient. You may have to wait a moment before being dismissed from your bus so that we can better manage the entrance lines into the school. There will also be adjustments during dismissal to get all students on board the correct bus routes quickly and efficiently. We ask that you do not hang out outside. Find your bus and board quickly so that we can get everyone home safely. G. Engage in any form of academic misconduct. Examples of academic misconduct include, but are not limited to, plagiarism, cheating, copying, altering records, or assisting another student in any of the above items. Take some time to read the next sections, which include information on reporting violations, disciplinary penalties, procedures, referrals, information about due process, suspension, short and long term, criteria to consider, and referral to outside agencies, such as counseling, PINS, and the family court. The final section includes information on student rights, internet safety, and instructional technology, which are all board-approved policies. On page 57 and 58, you can review our policies on instructional technology and the idea of connect with respect, including information on the personal device protocols, power off, attention on, and respectful use allowed. Much more of your time will be spent accessing instruction through digital means. Be responsible, be respectful, be golden. When you are using a school-issued device, be sure to follow all guidelines included in the user agreement. And if you are using a personal device on the school network, remember to use that connection respectfully and responsibly. Instances during remote learning of bullying, harassment, or other misconduct will not be tolerated and will face disciplinary consequences under the Code of Conduct. Policies of diversity and culture and the notices of non-discrimination explain those processes. It is the intent of the Vestal School District to foster respect, understanding, and acceptance among children and staff who represent different religions, races, and nationalities. Review more about our guiding principles beginning on page 52. Before we wrap up this video, let's take a second to check your understanding. What should you do if your parent or guardian does not complete your health form before you arrive at school? If you said enter towards the far right attendance window and let a staff member know so they can review the form with you, you are right. True or false? You are required to attend virtual lessons and complete assignments each day, even if you are fully remote or it is not your in-person cohort day. And the answer to that is true. Attendance is critical to your success. Where are you required to wear a face mask or face covering at school? If you made a list of these places, the bus, hallway, study hall, classrooms, restrooms, or anytime you are within 6 feet of someone unless you are eating, you are correct. Wear your mask. It is a sign of respect. As we wrap up this video, let's take a moment to check your understanding on a few key points. True or false? According to the Student Handbook and Code of Conduct, bullying is defined as unwanted aggressive behavior, which harms or induces fear with the threat of further aggression. The behavior is repeated or has the potential to be repeated over time. Our answer is true. Students may not intimidate, evoke fear, or otherwise harass staff or other students. This behavior will not be tolerated and is a violation of Section E in the Code of Conduct. If you have concerns about bullying, remember to report it to an administrator, the SRO, or any caring staff member. To be eligible to drive and park on campus, students must complete an online orientation. The student and parent must sign to verify that they have completed the orientation and complete vehicle registration paperwork prior to the school issuing the student hang tag. If you are not a senior or a staff member, where can you park? If you said the library lot, the Little League lot, or a designated area above the guardrails at Salmon Field, you are correct. According to the section of prohibited student conduct on pages 28 through 31, which is an example of insubordination? A. Plagiarism. B. Failing to comply with the directions of a teacher, school administrator, or school employee. C. Using language or gestures that are profane, lewd, vulgar, or abusive. Or D. Displaying what appears to be a weapon. The answer is B. Failing to comply with the directions of a teacher, school administrator, or school employee. All of these are examples of prohibited student conduct. Plagiarism is academic misconduct, Section G. Using language or gestures that are profane, lewd, vulgar, or abusive is in Section A, disorderly conduct. And displaying what appears to be a weapon is in Section D, conduct that is violent. This concludes our Student Handbook and Code of Conduct overview. You should have already signed a form along with a parent indicating that you received a copy of the student planner. Next, you will need to follow the link provided to complete a digital quiz and sign digitally to certify that you have watched this overview video. You will be held accountable for all information in the student planner and Code of Conduct and should read this information in depth. The remaining pages in your student planner provide you with space to stay organized, keep track of assignments, meetings, and extracurriculars. We are confident that together we can reach high levels of success and know that the use of the student planner is one of many tools to help you plan your success. We are excited to welcome you back, whether virtually or in person. Have a great school year.